So we're going to communicate with Chris Hadfield. He's going to speak to us live from Star City in Russia, where he's training. In December, he's going to the International Space Station for 6 months. And not only is that significant, he's actually going to be the first ever Canadian commander of the International Space Station.
When I was a kid, there was lots of stuff going on. But when I first started to become aware of the news, when I first started reading newspapers or magazines, you know, when I was like, I first knew they existed when I was like 8 or 9, that's when the race to the moon, when the big space race was going on. And they actually walked on the moon just before I turned 10 years old. So I knew about there was a lot of world excitement about it. And I knew it was happening. And I got to stay up late at night and watch Neil and Buzz walk on the moon. And that night, I decided that is what I want to do when I grow up. And it wasn't just hard then, Libby. It was impossible. 'Cause there was no Canadian space program. There were no Canadian astronauts. You know, if I wanted to be an astronaut, I had to become a Soviet or an American. And I didn't want to do either of those things. But I thought, well, maybe someday there'll be a Canadian program, and I'm going to start getting ready. And so I started to try and learn things. I joined Air Cadets. I learned to fly. I learned to speak languages. I learned to scuba dive. I took courses in high school, like you guys are in a science program, so that I could go to university. I went to 2 different universities. I joined the Air Force. I flew fighters. I went to test pilot school and became a test pilot. And when I was hired as an astronaut, I was an engineer test pilot. But what really got me interested was just something exciting as a kid. And I would ask you to do the same thing. What is in your heart of hearts? You know, when you think about it, what excites you? And start turning yourself in, you know, the next decision you make, what you do tonight when you go home, what show you watch on TV, or what book you read, or whether you exercise, or whether you don't, or what food you eat, you are just turning yourself into the person you're going to be tomorrow or next week. And it's amazing, by little tiny decisions after a whole lifetime, that this 9-year-old boy has turned himself into a spaceship commander. And so it's amazing what can happen. Thanks for having me into the Ontario Science Center today.